Because the right habit is not just something that looks good. The right habit meets the place in you that has been neglected. So start small enough to stay consistent. And this is where many people mess up. When we decide to change, we try to change everything all at once. We say, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to read every morning. I'm going to journal for 30 minutes. I'm going to stop eating this, start doing that, fix my whole schedule, become a brand new person by Monday. And by Wednesday, we are tired. By Thursday, we feel behind. By Friday, we are already quit. Not because we did not care, but because we tried to build a habit that was too big for the season we were in.
Every story's got a spark, and every spark's got a name. This is the journey of finding mine. Who am I when the lights go low? Who am I when the world says no? Searching through my past, trying to free my soul, one truth at a time, letting every story unfold.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Who Am I podcast, where we pause, reflect, and refocus. Before we get into today's conversation, I want to do a pre-check. Not a schedule check, not a work check, not a family check, not a what do I need to get done today kind of check. I want to do a you check. I want to check on you personally, because some of us know how to check on everybody else. We check on our spouse, our children, our parents, our friends, our job. We even check on the bills. We check the calendar. We check on the notifications. We check on the people who need us. But when was the last time you checked on you? Not the version of you that performs, not the version of you that smiles, not the version of you that says, I'm good. Because you do not have the energy to explain the truth. I mean the real you, the tired you, the stretched thin you, the overwhelmed you, the quiet you, the part of you that keeps showing up for everybody else while secretly wondering, when is somebody going to show up for me? So before we get into this episode, take a breath. And ask yourself, what part of me have I been neglecting? Is it your rest? Is it your peace? Is it your prayer life? Is it your health? Is it your joy? Is it your boundaries? Is it your dreams? Is it your emotional well-being? Is it the part of you that used to feel alive before life got so heavy? Because today we are talking about self-care, but not in the shallow way. Not the kind that makes you feel like you have to buy something, post something, prove something, or create a perfect routine. Today we are talking about a habit that brings you back to yourself. What I call a return to me habit. A return to me habit. One small daily practice that says I matter too. One small daily practice that says I am worth showing up for. One small daily practice that says I will not keep abandoning myself while trying to take care of everybody else. So today's pre-check is simple. Where have I been leaving myself last? Sit with that for a second, because sometimes self-care does not begin with doing more. Sometimes self-care begins with being honest enough to admit, I have not been caring for me. I have not been caring for me. See, everybody talks about self-care, but nobody talks about how hard it is to care for yourself when you have been trained to take care of everybody else. Today, we're not talking about expensive routines or picture perfect wellness. We're not talking about turning your life into a social media highlight reel. We are not talking about pretending you have it all together. We are talking about one small habit that says, I am coming back to me. Because self-care is not selfish, it is stewardship. It is how you take care of the person God trusted you to be. It is how you stop pouring from an empty place and calling it purpose. It is how you stop giving everybody the best of you while giving yourself the leftovers. It is how you remind yourself that you are not just here to produce, perform, to carry, to fix, to serve, to work, to answer, and survive. You are a person too. First and foremost, you are a person too. You have needs. You have a soul. You have a heart. You have a body. You have emotions. You have limits too. And if you keep ignoring those limits, eventually your life will start speaking in ways you cannot ignore. Your body will speak, your attitude will speak, your exhaustion, your resentment, your silence, your burnout will all speak. So before life has to force you to stop, maybe wisdom is inviting you to pause. Maybe God is inviting you to slow down. Maybe this is not the season where you add more pressure. Maybe this is the season where you start one habit that helps you come back to yourself. Not 10, not a whole new life overnight, just one. One return to me habit. And today we're going to talk about how to build it. So let's pause. Let's reflect. Let's refocus. This episode is not about guilt. It's not about shame. It is not about making you feel bad for being tired. It is about giving you permission to start with you. Because on the Who Am I podcast, we are always asking the deeper questions. Who am I? But sometimes the answer gets buried under everything we are carrying. Sometimes you cannot hear yourself because life has been too loud. Sometimes you cannot feel yourself because you have been numb for too long. Sometimes you cannot recognize yourself because you have spent years becoming what everybody else needed. So today we are building a habit that helps you come back. A return to me habit. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how self-care starts with self-honesty. Self-care starts with self-honesty. Before you can start a new habit, you have to ask yourself, what part of me is being neglected? Because you cannot care for what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot heal what you keep hiding. You cannot strengthen what you keep ignoring. And for many of us, the issue is not that we do not know how to care for ourselves. The issue is that we do not feel like we have permission. We feel guilt when we rest. We feel selfish when we say no. We feel lazy when we slow down. We feel wrong when we choose ourselves. We feel like we are not constantly available, constantly productive, constantly helping, constantly moving, then we are failing somebody. But I want to ask you something. Who told you that your value is only connected to what you do for other people? Who taught you that taking care of yourself is selfish? Who made you feel like your needs are a burden? Who convinced you that exhaustion is proof of dedication? Because sometimes what we call strength is really neglect with a nice name. Sometimes what we call being dependable is really being depleted. Sometimes what we call pushing through is really ignoring warning signs. Sometimes what we call I got it is really I do not know how to ask for help. And sometimes that is why self honesty matters. And that is why self honesty matters. Because before you can build a return to me habit, you need to tell the truth about where you have been missing from your own life. Maybe you have been neglecting your body. You keep saying, I need to rest, but you keep staying up late, scrolling, worrying, working, thinking, doing everything except letting yourself recover. Maybe you have been neglecting your emotions. You keep moving from one responsibility to the next, but you never pause long enough to admit that you are hurt, disappointed, angry, grieving, or overwhelmed. Maybe you have been neglecting your spiritual life. You know how to pray for everybody else, but you have not sat with God about what is really going on inside of you. Maybe you have been neglecting your joy. You have been so focused on surviving that you forgot what makes you laugh, what brings you peace, what makes you feel alive. Maybe you have been neglecting your boundaries. You keep saying yes while your spirit is saying no. You keep over explaining yourself. You keep accepting things that cost you your peace. You keep being available for people who are never available for you. And today's self honesty asks, what part of me needs care? Today's self honesty asks, what part of me need care? Not what part of me needs to perform better, not what parts of me needs to prove more, not what part of me needs to impress people. What part of me needs care? See, that question is important because your habits should match your needs. If you are exhausted, maybe your return to me habit is going to bed early. If you are spiritually dry, maybe your return to me habit is 5 minutes of prayer before you touch your phone. If you're emotionally overwhelmed, maybe your return to me habit is journaling one honest sentence every morning. If you're disconnected from your body, maybe your return to me habit is drinking water before coffee or taking a short walk. If you are always reacting, maybe your return to me habit is praying before responding. If you're always checking on everybody else first, maybe your return to me habit is checking in with yourself before checking on the world. It starts with honesty. Because the right habit is not just something that looks good. The right habit meets the place in you that has been neglected. So start small enough to stay consistent. And this is where many people mess up. When we decide to change, we try to change everything all at once. We say, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to read every morning. I'm going to journal for 30 minutes. I'm going to stop eating this, start doing that, fix my whole schedule, become a brand new person by Monday. And by Wednesday, we are tired. By Thursday, we feel behind. By Friday, we are already quit. Not because we did not care, but because we tried to build a habit that was too big for the season we were in. So listen, a return to me habit does not have to be big to be powerful. It does not have to be big to be powerful. 5 minutes done daily can change your entire rhythmic system. One honest sentence can open your heart. One quiet walk can clear your mind. One glass of water can remind your body, I am caring for you. One prayer before reacting can stop you from saying something out of pain. One no without over explaining can help you rebuild your boundaries. One night of choosing sleep over scrolling can begin to restore your body. Small is not weak, small is sustainable. It is sustainable. And sometimes the reason we do not start is because we think it has to be dramatic. We think healing has to look big. We think growth has to look big. We think change has to look big. But some of the most powerful changes begins quietly. They begin with a decision nobody sees. They begin with a choice nobody claps for. They begins with a moment where you say, I am not going to keep leaving myself last. That is why your return to me habit needs to be small enough to repeat, because consistency builds trust. And some of us needs to build trust first with ourselves. We have broken promises to ourselves so many times that we do not even believe ourselves when we say we are going to change. We say I'm going to start Monday, but deep down we wonder if we really will. We say I'm going to do better, but we have said that before. We say I'm going to take care of myself, but life gets busy, people needs us, stress rises, and we disappear from our own schedule again. So do not start with a habit that overwhelms you. Start with one you can keep. Maybe it is 10 quiet minutes before the day starts. Maybe it is one short walk without your phone. Maybe it is journaling one sentence. Maybe it is showing up to work early, just sit in your car, taking a moment to pause, reset, refocus before going into work. Maybe it is drinking water before coffee. Maybe it is praying before you respond to a stressful message. Maybe it is taking 3 deep breaths before you walk into work. Maybe it is going to bed 15 minutes earlier. Maybe it is checking in with yourself before you check your notifications. It may seem small, but do not underestimate what small obedience can produce. Do not underestimate what small consistency can restore. Do not underestimate the power of showing up for yourself every day. Because every time you keep that small promise, you are telling yourself, I can trust me again. And that matters. That matters. So choose care, not performance. And let's talk about something very important. Let's talk about something important. I believe it is. Do not turn self-care into another thing to prove. Because some of us are so used to performing that we even turn healing into performance. We start comparing routines. We start feeling bad because somebody else wakes up earlier. We start judging ourselves because our habits does not look impressive. We start turning self-care into another checklist. And instead of being restored, we become pressured. But a return to me habit is not about performance. It is about care. It is not about looking disciplined for people. It is about becoming present with yourself. It is not about posting your progress. It is about protecting your peace. It is not about proving you're strong. It is about honoring the places where you need support. So if your habits become another burden, pause and ask, is this helping me return to myself, or is this making me perform again? Because that is the difference. Care restores you. Performance drains you. Care says, I am worth attention. Performance says, I need to prove I am enough. Care says, I am listening to what I need. Performance says, I need people to see that I am doing well. Care says, I can be honest. Performance says, I have to look okay. And many of us have lived too long in performance. We perform strength, we perform peace, we perform happiness, we perform confidence, we perform faith, we perform being okay. But self-care invites you to stop performing long enough to tell the truth. Maybe today you do not need a perfect morning routine. Maybe today you need to cry. Maybe today you need to rest. Maybe today you need to admit that you are angry. Maybe today you need to say no. Maybe today you need to sit quietly with God and say, I am tired. Maybe today you need to stop pretending that you are okay just because you are functioning. That is care. Care is honest. Care is gentle. Care tells the truth without shame. And here is something else. Here is something else. Take this with you. Your self-care does not have to make sense to everybody. Some people may not understand why you are unavailable. Some people may not understand why you are resting. Some people may not understand why you are setting boundaries. Some people may not understand why you are being quiet. Some people may not understand why you are choosing peace over proving a point. That is okay. You are not building this habit for them. You are building it because you are learning to come back to yourself. And sometimes the person who needs your care the most is the person you keep overlooking in the mirror. So protect the habit like an appointment. And this is where the habit becomes real. You have to protect it. You have to protect it because what you do not protect, life will interrupt. You already know how this goes. You say, I'm going to take 10 minutes for myself. Then the phone rings, a message comes in. Somebody needs something, a problem shows up, a bill comes due. The day starts moving fast. And before you know it, that 10 minutes for yourself disappears. Not because you did not want it, but because you did not protect it. And this is where we have to be honest. We have to be honest with ourselves because many of us protect everybody else's needs better than we protect our own. We show up for work on time. We show up for meetings. We show up for church. We show up for family. We show up for friends. We show up for responsibilities. We show up when people calls. We show up when people needs us. But when it comes to showing up for ourselves, we cancel the appointment first. And then we wonder why we feel disconnected. We wonder why we feel resentful. We wonder why we feel exhausted. We wonder why we feel like we are losing ourselves. It is because you keep canceling on you. So your return to me habit has to be protected like an appointment, not because you're selfish, because you are valuable. You do not have to give yourself 2 hours. Start with 5 minutes, but protect it. Start with 5 minutes, but protect those 5 minutes as your life depends on it. Put it on your calendar if you need to. Set a reminder if you need to. Tell yourself, this is my time to come back to me. And when guilt shows up, remind yourself, I am allowed to care for me too. When pressure shows up, remind yourself, I cannot pour from an empty place. When people need you, remind yourself, I can still be loving and have limits. When your mind says you do not have time, remind yourself, I make time for what matters and I matter too. See, that sentence right there is powerful. I matter. Not in a prideful way, not in an arrogant way, but in a truthful way. I matter because my peace matters, my health matters, my mind matters, my spirit matters, my rest matters, my healing matters. And when you really believe that, you begin to protect what keeps you whole. Now, let me say this clearly. Protecting your habits does not mean life will never interrupt you. There will be days when the schedule shifts. There will be days when emergencies happens. There will be days when you miss the opportunity. But missing one day does not mean you quit. Missing one day does not mean you failed. Missing one day does not mean the habit is over. Just return. That is why it is called a return to me habit, because you can return again. You can come back again. You can start again. You do not shame yourself. You do not say, I always mess up. You do not throw the whole thing away. You simply say, I missed it, but I am coming back. That is growth. That is grace. That is how consistency is built. It's built not by being perfect, but by returning. The last thing I want to give you is this. Let the habit remind you who you are, because this is deeper than water. This is deeper than walking, deeper than journaling. This is deeper than going to bed on time. This is deeper than quiet time. The habit is a reminder. Every time you do it, you are saying something to yourself. When you take 10 quiet minutes before the day starts, you are saying, my day does not have to begin in chaos. When you walk without your phone, you are saying, I can be present with myself. When you journal one honest sentence, you are saying, my feelings deserves a voice. When you say no without over explaining, you are saying my boundaries are valid. When you pray before reacting, you are saying, I do not have to let emotions drive every response. When you drink water before coffee, you are saying, my body deserves care. And when you go to bed instead of scrolling, you are saying, my rest matters more than distractions. When you check in with yourself before checking on everybody else, you are saying, I am not abandoning me today. That is why the habit matters. It becomes a daily reminder of your worth. Because every time you keep that promise to yourself, you rebuild trust with yourself. And when you rebuild trust with yourself, something starts to shift. You start believing that you can change. You start believing that you can grow. You start believing that you can become consistent. You start believing that you are worth the effort. You start believing that you do not have to keep living disconnected from yourself. And that is powerful, my friend, because some of us have been waiting for a big breakthrough, but God may be asking us to become faithful over a small habit. Sometimes the breakthrough starts small. Sometimes the healing starts small. Sometimes the return starts small. Sometimes becoming starts with one quiet decision. I am going to take care of me. That may sound dramatic. That may not sound dramatic. But for somebody else who has spent years leaving themselves last, that is a breakthrough. For somebody who has spent years saying yes when they wanted to say no, that is a breakthrough. For somebody who has spent years ignoring their body, that is a breakthrough. For somebody who spent years performing strength, that is a breakthrough. For somebody who has spent years pouring out while running empty, that is a breakthrough. So do not despise the small habit. That small habit may be the doorway back to you. So let's pause right here. Take a breath. I want you to think about your life right now. Not the life you show people, not the life people assume you have. Your real life, your real schedule, your real emotions, your real exhaustions, your real needs. Now ask yourself, what part of me needs care? Is it my body? Is it my mind? Is it my spirit, my peace, my boundaries, my joy, my rest, my confidence? Is it my relationship with God? What part of me have I been ignoring? And then ask, what is one small habit that could help me come back to myself? Not 10, but one. One promise, one daily practice. Maybe it is 10 quiet minutes. Maybe it is a walk. Maybe it's water. Maybe it's praying, journaling, sleep, saying no, turning the phone off, checking in with yourself before checking on everybody else. Whatever it is, make it small enough to obtain and meaningful enough to matter. Because this is not about doing everything at once. This is about starting somewhere. So as we get ready to close, I want to remind you this. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is stewardship. If you saying, God gave me this life, this body, this mind, this spirit, this purpose, and I have a responsibility to care for what he trusted me with. If you are saying, wait a minute, let me start over. So as we get ready to close, I want to remind you, self-care is not selfish. Self-care is stewardship. It is you saying, God gave me this life, this body, this mind, this spirit, this purpose, and I have a responsibility to care for what he trusted me with. You cannot keep pouring out of an empty place and calling it purpose. You cannot keep neglecting yourself and calling it sacrifice. You cannot keep ignoring your limits and calling it strength. You cannot keep abandoning yourself and expect to feel whole. There comes a moment where you have to start with you. Not because other people do not matter, but because you matter too. And maybe that is hard for you to say. Maybe even hearing that makes you uncomfortable. Maybe you have been so trained to be needed that you do not know who you are when you are being cared for. Maybe you have been so trained to show up for others that showing up for yourself feels wrong. But it is not wrong. It is necessary because the healthier you are, the better you can love. Because the healthier you are, the better you can love. The healthier you are, the better you can serve. The healthier you are, the better you can lead. The healthier you are, the better you can hear from God. The healthier you are, the better you can walk in purpose. So this week, do not try to change everything. Choose one habit, one small promise, one daily reminder you are worth showing up for. Because the journey back to yourself does not always start with the breakthrough. Sometimes it starts with a glass of water, a quiet prayer, a walk around the block, a journal entry, a bedtime, a boundary, a deep breath, and the decision to stop leaving yourself last. So start with you. I encourage you to start with you. Build your return to me habit, and every time you keep it, let it remind you, I am coming back to me. This has been the Who Am I podcast, and I'm your host, Jeff Hopgood, reminding you once again to pause, reflect, and refocus. And before you go, I want you to ask yourself one question. What is one small habit I can start this week that helps me return to myself? Do not overthink it. Do not make it complicated. Just choose one. And remember, you are not selfish for needing care. You are not weak for needing rest. You are not wrong for having limits. You are not failing because you need to pause. You know what you are? You are human. Your life is valuable. You are worth showing up for, and most importantly, showing up for yourself. So keep asking the question, who am I? And this week, add one more. This is your homework assignment. How can I come back to me? How can I come back to me? So until next time, protect your peace, honor your limits, and start with you. So before we move forward, I want you to pause for just a moment. Take a breath. Wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, this next part is for you. Let's speak life over ourselves out loud if you can, because what we say in this moment has the power to shift how we walk into the rest of our day. So let's begin with our affirmation. I am not defined by my past or limited by my mistakes. I am growing, learning, and becoming who I was created to be. I have values beyond titles, roles, and expectations. I choose honesty over fear and growth over comfort. I am allowed to change, heal, and evolve. I walk with purpose, clarity, and courage. I am becoming more aligned with my true self every day. And who I am is enough. So as we close today's episode, I want to thank you for taking this time for yourself. If something you heard inspired you, challenged you, or made you pause and reflect, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who may need it. Invite them into the conversation. See, this podcast grows when we grow together. I cannot do this without you. We grow together through shared stories, honest reflections, and real connections. Every listen, every share, every conversation helps create a community rooted in purpose, rooted in love, rooted in hope, rooted in faith, rooted in trust and truth. So until next time, keep reflecting, keep becoming, and remember, you matter. This is the Who Am I podcast, and let's walk this journey together.